Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon of the Chabad House of Delmar, together with my co-host, Mark Fromich.
And Rabbi, we have a very special guest with us today. Her name is Dannielle Hille. A lot of people in the Albany area know her very well. She's a community advocate, and amongst other titles that you have, which we will go into.
Yes.
But you are also the chair of ACPAC.
Yes.
And that's the Albany Citizens Police.
Albany Community Policing Advisory Committee.
That's right, okay. So, I was close. But, so welcome to the Jewish View, and
Thank you for having me.
You're very busy, so I'm very happy that you found the time to come on the show.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You know, it's interesting that you're, tell us about your regular job. This is a volunteer job that you do
Well, she has a lot of volunteer jobs.
Yes. But during the day, I'm a counselor at a correctional facility.
It's very interesting. I'm just going to connect the two things together. In a way, you're not a policeman, or you're a counselor, but you work in the prison system, and
Correct.
also, you know, then I guess maybe you relate to the community of the policing actions also. I mean, it goes hand in hand, you think? I mean, it's helpful knowing both sides of the issue, the prisoners, the inmates, and then the police also.
I think it helps in the fact that the things that we're trying to get back to are more reduction of recidivism, and how we re-enter them into our communities, how we ensure that they receive any necessary services to remain on the correct path, get through their parole, and, you know, become beneficial parts of our community.
You know, I actually want to say you have a few jobs, so I have 10 jobs. One of them is visiting the inmates in prisons, the Jewish, but there's a lot of non-Jewish people who come also, and they're always welcome. But some of them complain, and some of them almost with tears in their eyes saying, I'm going to be released. Obviously, people get released, and they go back, but they're going to release me back to my old neighborhood and my old friends. So you can imagine who, you know, obviously society maybe it would be better, and that's a very Jewish thing, if I can put one on the Jewish View, a Jewish attitude. What if someone steals? So Jewish law doesn't say incarcerate them. I'm not talking about Israeli today, but I'm talking about biblical, you know, the Bible times. And you don't put a person in jail and lock them up, and sometimes I say like a monkey cage, but in a way that is, you know, degrading, you know, you're not fit to be in the human society. It says, well, you got to pay double. Well, you know, I'm poor. How can I pay double when I don't have the money for the one thing? I was stealing a horse, you know, those days because I didn't have a horse. Well, now what you're going to do is you're going to work it off. So what happens is, in a way, people don't like it. It's not really slavery, indentured servant, you know, because slavery obviously has such a bad connotation, but they're working it off. And where are they working off? In a middle class or upper middle class who has money to hire somebody. It's someone who has means, not a poor person themselves. So in the meantime, they're living for the year or whatever it is to take off, that they work it off, and they're eating same kind of food, and that's many laws about that. Not like, okay, here you're just a low criminal, here's some dog food for you. But, you know, I mean, you're saying that you're going to eat. It says you have to give them exactly what you're eating. And, you know, and in Yiddish you would call it a mensch. You feel like a human being. You know, you go to work. Here, instead of look at the person, I mean, not that I'm a big gardener, but you know, like that you work in the field and you feel productive and you're doing something and you're paying off your debt and you feel good at the end. And I just say with these prisoners, the inmates tell me, I'm going to go back. Who else is going to befriend them? It's only their old friends. And they go into the inner city. And that's what I'm saying, to break that cycle, but it's hard. I mean, I don't know what the advice is. You can't tell society to bring these inmates into an upper middle class society and befriend them. You know, they'd have a riot from the upper middle class, you know, suburbs doing that. But, you know, that's what I'm saying, it's hard to break the cycle. That's what I'm bringing out, you know, that's what I'm saying. You say obviously they're in for a reason, but on the other hand, you don't want to just say, hey, you know, get out of that habits of drugs and so much drugs happening. That itself's a big issue.
So one of the things that I'm very big on is when they go home, they volunteer.
Inmates.
Right. I mean, I tell everybody that they should volunteer. I think that it's really, really important to give back to the community. And when they are going back to the community that they are perceived to have harmed, then where else but to pay that back? We are the people who stop the cycle. You have to be like, we have to stop it. You have to want to stop it, and you have to go out there and make change. If they take those steps, their children are less likely to follow in their footsteps and end up in prison. And they could affect an entire neighborhood just by the work that they do. There are going to be the temptations, there are going to be the issues that they run into, but if they find positive things to do with their time, then they're less likely to fall into the negatives. And, I think that community service should be utilized more in sentences.
Definitely.
And I think the community should get involved in community service.
Well, we're community media, so you can certainly send them to us, and we'll certainly have them work at Channel Albany.
But, I find that when they get into their communities and they do things to help that community, that now they own something there too.
Right, exactly, they do.
Even if it's picking up trash, that's the street that they cleaned. And to see somebody else throw trash on it, that's somebody doing something to something that they invested their time and their energy into.
They sort of take ownership of that.
Right.
And it empowers them.
It empowers them, and it makes them more part of the community, which is why I also suggest that everybody volunteers, because you take ownership in the things that you do. So
I think that's a great idea. As a rabbi, and, just getting volunteers is so difficult. And, maybe some will be on a committee, but will they, put their shoulder to the grindstone? And, I think that, like you say, it's interesting because I'm already thinking sometimes in the classroom, one of my other 10 jobs, that in the classroom they tried to, the kids who were a little bit behind, teach them that way. And they integrated regular kids with these kids. And they also gained. So what you're saying to volunteer for inmates, really, that would make everybody feel a part of the community, not just, how many people vote, for example. They just don't care, or they just, I'm just getting through life. And
Right.
Doesn't make a difference. So I think it's good for the mental health for
everyone.
the community, for everyone. I totally agree with that.
And that's something you've brought up in the past to me, is that, if you're convicted, once you're released, you don't give up your right to vote. You could still, you have to re-register to vote.
While you're on parole,
Right.
you cannot vote. Once you have completed your sentence and your parole,
Yeah.
if you have any, or post-release supervision, then your voting rights are automatically restored. But you do have to go and register.
Yes.
It's a big misconception that a lot of people have. The voting rights differ from state to state. There are some states that don't take it at all.
Right.
There are other states that will take it for life.
Well, New York allows you to.
New York takes it while you're incarcerated in state prison.
Takes it away, right.
Right, or out on parole or community supervision. If you're in county before a conviction, you can vote. Your voting rights have not been suspended yet. So we don't actually, we don't really revoke them, we suspend them.
Well, we had as our guest here, Albany Common Councilman Mark Robinson. And I said to him, I kind of knew the answer, but I just said to him, gee, what did you do before you were a councilman? And he says, I was in federal prison for 9 years for selling drugs. And I went, do you know that you're getting this backwards? You're supposed to be elected first, then go to prison. You went to prison first, then you got elected. And we all had a big laugh about it. He took it very well, so that's why I'm repeating it. But
we also had the president of the American Women's League for Women Voters, and I also had that misconception. So I think it's very important for our viewers. And she says, it's interesting. Someone else that I was talking to thought, once you're a felon, you lost it. Right. And, she says it's important to get that idea out.
It's very, very important. And because it's such a pervasive misconception, it's hard to change that, because people are like, well, I was told. Somebody told me. I heard this.
Like
everybody says.
Telephone in school.
Right.
By the time it gets to the last person, it's something totally different than the beginning. Okay. So Dannielle, I wanted to ask you. You also have something you were mentioning about people after they're released, that they would clean up their block and, pick up trash and being empowered. And you have a blog or community blog, one block at a time?
Yes.
And what could explain that? Is that in the same vein?
Not really.
Okay, then explain that. Okay.
One block at a time kind of came out of a way for me to chrono everything. So I was
Chronological?
to be able to archive the things that were going on.
Sure.
So I use a block at a time, and forgive me, I'm quite behind on it with every other thing that's going on, but to keep track and keep like a running page and an archive of what I've been working on in the community or what's going on. It's the concept of it is that you can actually change things literally a block at a time.
Okay.
You know, if
true.
everybody, even if we just worried about the block that we live on, if everybody worried about the block that they lived on, then every block would be covered and the whole city would be taken care of.
So your block that you live on,
My block.
are you a shining example of that? Are you setting the
I
pace?
try to set the pace. I
Okay.
try to.
Do you go around and introduce, get everyone's phone number, email address, name, and try to stay in touch with everyone on the block? If you see something, say something, or,
I think they all have mine,
They all have yours, yes, well.
but
But everyone should have each other's, I believe. I mean, we really should be sharing our personal information just so we feel the walls, the barriers of our homes are broken down and we could still interact in a friendly fashion with each other.
I don't know that I have everyone's, but I have most of them.
Yeah, most of them. Yeah.
And
That's good.
usually, if
On
one
my
doesn't
block,
have,
I have found no resistance to, when I went around to the 6 or 7 homes on my block, everyone was thrilled that, I was starting the Whitehall Neighborhood Association, so I went to my block first.
Right.
And we were all kept informed of what's going on, so.
my neighborhood's really good about that. We have, we usually go through the chain and figure out who's got whose number if we don't have it immediately.
And then you know who's moving in and who's moving out.
Right.
And that's all good because I believe that you should have a block party or you should have some way of socializing with your neighbors and not just have it for the information for emergencies or negative reasons, So.
Dannielle, talk about your byline, as our viewers have seen on the television.
ACPAC.
That first time I met you was at the Albany Jewish Community Center, and you were the coordinator, it seemed the coordinator that with so many policemen were there. I thought it was a police convention. They had so many police.
Union meeting.
Yeah, I know. But tell us about that and what your role is. I was there just to sum up I think the police are one of the best. Albany police are some of the best in the country, number one. And I'll tell you that it was a small incident, but I think it's indicative that, again, I'm a rabbi and we take in everybody no matter what. And some woman in Albany was having serious mental health issues enough where they had to take her away to bring her to the Albany Medical Center. She needed to be hospitalized. But she's calling us up, something's wrong, obviously nervous breakdown, and she's calling us up, my wife and myself, and says, she's all super nervous. The police are here. And we can even hear in the background, the police says, very nicely, I'm not here to hurt you. You know what I'm saying? Instead of, we think the police are, the tough guys and come with their guns and blazing guns. And here, she needed that, but, it's almost like a social worker. Here you think a policeman, a tough guy, and he was just saying, we're not going to hurt you. We're going to just take care of you. And I just think that was my little incident with the Albany Police Department where, that's what they were saying. We're trying to work with the community.
I thought you had a juicier story. I thought you were saying
You're
something
the
about
reporter.
handcuffs or something. I don't know.
You're the reporter, I'm the rabbi over here. The reporters dig up I see in Yiddish, the schmutz, the dirt over here. I'm rabbi, I look for the nice things.
I'm looking
but I'm
for
just saying,
sometime
but
they
it
took
is
the
true.
cuffs
That's
out.
what they were trying to say. Hey, we're working with the community. We're not just looking for
Right.
criminals and shooting them up.
Well, we have community policing in all the
Correct.
city of Albany, and that's where that comes in. So why don't you explain ACPAC a little bit?
So the Albany Community Policing Advisory Committee was originally formed in order to help institute community policing here in Albany. And after we began community policing, the committee stayed on in order to assist with building the bridges between the community and the Albany Police Department. I think that police work has become more of social work than it has been, the guns blaring, kicking the doors down type of, dirty, hairy police idea. A lot of stuff that police deal with today is going to be mental health issues and homelessness, quality of life. Those are probably the number one incidents that a police officer is going to
No, that's true.
be called to.
Quality of life, it really
Quality of life
That's
is
it.
big.
Yeah.
And some of that is, quality of life causes a perceived idea of things being unsafe or dangerous. And when those are handled, people feel better about their area. And because the officers are having to handle so much more of those type of issues, they spend a lot of time, especially our community officers, I think, being more social workers.
Have you taken one of these rides in a police car, like over, what do they call, their 8-hour shift or something?
I have.
You have?
I should have picked a busier shift.
Okay. It could get tedious.
It can.
I want to do it like overnight, like the red eye, or overnight, the graveyard shift.
Or Friday or Saturday?
Saturday
Well,
night.
Saturday night,
Yeah.
not Friday, but yeah, Saturday night. Do from 10 to 4 in the morning. Nothing good happens after 2 a.m. So when they talk about closing down the bars, I can understand last call at 2 o'clock. I'm sure you agree with nothing good happens, nothing bad happens.
Except that
happens after 2
we
a.m.
have good officers that respond.
Oh, no, but I meant in terms of trouble.
No, but that's the good thing is that we have officers that are
I think an
capable.
exciting shift, a busy shift would be Saturday night
Yes.
between 11 and 7 or something.
During,
Mark wants,
I
yeah.
want action. I don't want to sit in a...
I
he's looking for
totally
a
agree.
scoop over here to have a
What's the biggest question or curiosity that you get from people? I mean, from my point of view, what people ask me about is, why is that cop car sitting in that parking lot all day, or perceived all day? It's a euphemism, but he's just sitting there. Was he having donuts in the And it's really that these cars are now their office.
Right.
And I thought maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
So I think that the biggest thing that the community wonders is, do the officers feel like do the officers take pride in the neighborhoods they're working in? Our patrol cars are very busy, so I don't think that they have. I know that they don't have the time that the NEU officers, the neighborhood engagement unit officers, have. Those officers are definitely part of the community.
Oh, yeah.
And go ahead.
So, I mean, they have their laptops in the car.
They have their laptops in the car. A lot of our NEU
information.
officers actually have offices. Spaces have offered them a space in their buildings. The library has offered them space. Some of the schools offered them space,
Right.
so they could have an office within the community. Because they're on foot, they're on bikes.
Oh, okay.
So they're out there, they know faces, they know names, kids recognize them.
And it's a perception issue.
Right.
If they're seen not doing something, then the perception is that they're not doing anything when they really are doing something, just their presence. No,
Right.
if you park an empty police car on the street, people are going to slow down.
Right.
Okay, it's the perception.
But that's also because the police car the police car comes after you in a car.
Yeah.
The police car, though, is a barrier between the community and the police officer.
Sure.
If the police officer's on foot
Or a bicycle.
or a bicycle,
Right.
you know, and they stop and they ride by and they say hello,
Yeah.
you're more likely to say hi back. You can't really say hi to them when they're driving by in a car.
Right.
And a person after interactions is more likely to bring up issues to that officer.
And I find that when I go up to an officer in a car, they're like, why is he approaching? You know, like their first thing is like, you know, it's a negative, their reaction, because they're trained.
They're trained to be cautious.
Yeah, to be cautious. So if I'm going up to them in a car, they're looking at me like, you know, this is like the first thing, their hand is on their gun, you know, and they got to be prepared. That's their thing, you know.
Well, they're at a disadvantage.
They're
seated in the car.
So I try not to go up to them in their car, and even when they say hello to me as they're walking or bicycling, I'm like, why is he saying that to me? You know, what's he want?
I think that was
Let them stay there, and I'll stay here, and we'll be okay.
Well, that's, you know, policing, it's not like when our neighborhoods were small and you knew the local sheriff and you knew all the deputies and you knew all the police officers.
Andy and Barney.
Right. It's not that way anymore. So it's been a long time since we interacted as much.
Do you find that that you're getting feedback that people are friendlier with police officers, or is there still a natural
They're getting
suspicion?
there. There's still, I mean, I think there's still going to be a natural suspicion. It's been a long time, especially in your community of color.
Yeah.
So, but they're more friendly with the officers that they recognize.
Okay.
So, you know, they know they're NEU officers. They recognize them. They know that the blue uniforms are the neighborhood beat officers.
Right.
So I think that actually breaks some of the ice.
Okay, so do you know anything about why the cop cars are changing color to black?
So there was...
You can't even see it says Albany Police, but it does. You know.
There were two designs that came up. The cars haven't changed in a long time.
Right.
And from what I understand, the overall opinion was that the non-black and white cars looked less like police cars.
The non-black and white.
Right. Because
Right.
the other ones were colored.
Right, but these are now just black.
Right. Well, they're black and white.
Okay, but some of the lettering is white
Yeah.
and the car is black?
Or there's a black stripe down the door.
Oh, no, they're black cars, and some of them have black lettering where you can just see the outline of it saying Albany Police.
But I
Yeah,
think
so-
the idea, or at least from what I've heard, 'cause
Yeah,
I mean, the police car is a police car to me.
okay.
But black and white is more police-like
Uh-huh.
than the colored ones.
Okay, so which do you prefer?
I actually like the black and white ones.
You do? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
It looks like a little intimidating. That's what maybe Mark's getting at, you know, a black.
And as
tough,
you're
you know,
trying
a
to
black
break down,
wagon.
what's your feeling about the change in, you know, three police chiefs in what, 3 years or less than 3 years? You know, does that bother you at all?
It's disappointing. You know, I would have liked to keep Cox longer than we had him and Krokoff longer than we had him, but it's an evolution. So they've helped to make the next generation of police chiefs.
Well, how do you feel about the current, I mean, can you even say, or do you feel in jeopardy if I ask you about how you feel about the current interim police chief, Bob Sears?
I like Bob Sears. I think that he would make a really good police chief.
He seems hardened. He seems like he doesn't seem as loose and friendly, like a guy you'd want to go have a soda with, you know, at the local fountain or something. He seems...
I think we've just gotten used to having police chiefs that are not your typical police chief.
Right, I know. So we should continue that.
And I wouldn't say that he wouldn't
I haven't
be
had very good interactions
that.
with him. And that's why. I mean, just personally, the few times I've had a chance to
They
speak to
arrested you
him.
already, Mark?
Well, I'm getting close to that. I want that. I really want, no. I want to ask you, please, about the...
Wait, let me answer
yeah,
that
sure, go
one
ahead.
first,
Yeah,
though.
please,
I think that as he goes on with the more
Yeah.
out in the public,
Okay.
and on that, I think that that'll change.
I hope so. I really hope so.
I don't get the hardened police officer from him.
Okay.
It may be because I've had far more interaction with him over the time. But my personal opinion is that I would like to see him continue.
Okay.
I don't want somebody from outside.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because the Albany Police Department is not like other police departments. And no matter how progressive somebody says that they are, going into a situation that's far more progressive than you come from may not be, you may find that you're not quite as progressive as you thought you were. So I just kind of worry that someone who hasn't been going through this transition with us may not quite be ready for how progressive Albany's police department is.
Okay, when he was the chief deputy, I mean, I was at one of these meetings that he was giving a presentation, and we wanted to video record it, and I wanted to have the microphone, and he was very microphone shy, camera shy, and he didn't want that much. Were you there at the meeting when I was doing that? No?
I did not see that. I was not at that one.
But he was just like, he didn't want to hold the mic, so I was like following him around with the mic, and he was just like, why are you doing that? It's
Mark,
like,
you're
and he
intimidating
well, no,
yourself
I mean,
over there.
to what, a deputy police chief? But, he's got the gun, I got to realize that, But I wanted to just, bring up this one thing, because it was all over that you compiled a New York State Wrongful Conviction database?
Yes.
Wow. I mean, I had an experience with someone from Brooklyn who was in Marine Park, and he was convicted of murder, and it was wrongful conviction, and it was just like, now he can't go out without having someone with him to verify his whereabouts all the time. I mean, he's out of jail after a couple of decades of being in jail. So I applaud you for doing that.
That's your point? What
you know.
would be the point of this database?
The point of the database when I made it, so I was the director of communications for It Could Happen to You, which is a grassroots nonprofit started by a gentleman who was wrongfully accused and later acquitted. And there's legislation that has now been in front of New York State's legislature for about 3 years. This will be the 4th year. And it's requesting things like open discovery, because right now in New York State, if you're accused of a crime, your attorney is going to need to write a brief requesting the evidence that's considered exculpatory, which means that it could assist you in your defense. The DA is then going to decide what is actually exculpatory. And then they're going to send you that, or they're going to tell you that they're not giving you anything. In other states, you get the whole copy of the whole file. It's open discovery. So we
Right.
have that bill, and we also...
So you want open discovery?
Yes.
Okay.
The secondary bill was for a commission on prosecutorial conduct. So we have a commission on judicial conduct, which oversees judges' conduct and has the authority to sanction them. But there is no oversight for district attorneys.
Are we finding more and more wrongful, I mean, it used to be the expression, everyone in prison says they didn't do it. And now we're finding that there's more than anyone ever thought of those people who say they didn't do it.
There are a lot of wrongful convictions.
Yeah.
I mean,
And DNA is helping.
DNA is helping a lot, but DNA is not available in every situation. There's several factors that lead to wrongful convictions. When I put the database together, my intention was to kind of give a snapshot of what wrongful conviction looked like in New York. And I was even a little taken back when I actually put all the numbers in. To know that, less than 300 people spent more than almost 2,000 years in prison for crimes that they didn't commit is huge.
Yeah.
Like, those are lives. What if they were meant to cure cancer or something?
It's time that can't be recovered.
That we can't give it back, and, we can't, how do you say sorry for that?
You don't, but money helps. It does. I mean, it's psychologically, because these people are psychologically damaged for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely.
Like I brought up in the case of the gentleman from Brooklyn. So anyway, congratulations on doing that. I really appreciate you doing that. That was very special. when I read that.
Dannielle,
so.
everything is beautiful. You do a great job in your regular job of helping the inmates get back on their feet. And number two, that you should be an exemplary example for everybody, that so much volunteer work, and I know what that means, to put so much effort into it and making the community better and people's lives are better. So kudos to you. Keep on going and do it with good success and good health.
Continued success, Dannielle.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Look forward to
And-
seeing you in the neighborhoods.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.